Oh, well, guys, look like it's 10 a.m. I'm just looking to see who's in here. We've got looks like we have about 6 people. Wait a couple minutes. Looks like people are starting to log in now. I hope you got your announcement email from last week. Remember, exam 1 will be available starting next Monday, a week from today. That's September 28th. And I'll talk more about the specifics with exam 1 on Wednesday during our live virtual session. So don't worry about that just yet. Today, I want to go back in and again review the debits and credits and the T accounts with you again with Chapter 3. Please let me know as I'm going through some of these stuff. Even before I start, I'll see if you have any questions, anything you've been looking at. If you have any issues or, if you're struggling with anything, let me know. Again, it's hard to believe today's already the 21st of September. I believe it's the last official day of summer. Believe it or not, I think tomorrow is the first day of fall. It's crazy how fast this time goes. But in any case, today I'm going to actually go into the Connect homework. There's a pretty good problem. If you haven't worked it yet, I'd like to review. And then time permitting, we'll go back and I'll do we'll go back and look at the textbook. There's another problem or two I've gotten there that I think are really good to review as well. But in any case, please make sure you check the Blackboard, your announcements in Blackboard. Again, try to give you a heads up. If you also go back and look at our schedule that I set at the start of the semester, we're basically right on schedule. Because if you go back and look, I think I had scheduled exam 1 to be the week of September 28th, again, which is next Monday. So in any case, we're just moving right along. And then, once we get through this chapter, I think you'll find that when we get to chapters 4, 5, and 6, as we keep going, I think I told you this earlier in the semester, that everything just starts to build on top of each other. So it's kind of like a pyramid. So everything we're learning in chapter 3, or really chapters 2 and 3, is really the foundation of this whole semester. So it's pretty important stuff. That's why I'm not rushing it. I'm trying to give you guys some time if you're a little behind to get caught up, to ask questions. And that's kind of where I'm at today. So without saying anything else, does anybody have any specific issues or questions they have for me? And this could be with Connect, with anything, you can let me know. And again, I don't have everybody muted just yet, but you can always unmute your microphone if you have a question or you want to send me a chat. Hold on, let me see if I got a question. Yeah, someone asked, yeah, I'm checking. I am recording everything I'm saying right now. So this session is being recorded. So once I start to when we put up a problem and I start to go through it with you, it'll be recorded. So you can use that as reference on your time when you want to go back and study. And let me just respond real quick. All right. Does anybody have anything else before I get started? Any Marcus?
No, I don't know why it's showing this Taylor. I don't know why it's showing my boyfriend name up there.
Okay, it's okay, no problem.
But I was having questions. I mean, I was having issues with the quiz. I think it was the last 2 questions, the income statements and stuff, to input it. That was throwing me off. I got froze on it. So
was that on are you talking about the chapter 2 quiz or the chapter 3 quiz?
The one that was due yesterday, I think that was chapter
2?
Chapter 2, yeah.
Okay.
And that was inputting the income statement, the balance sheet. Now I was getting the wording right, but the numbers, it wasn't.
Taylor, let me go back today and I'll take a look at, did you try to submit it yet?
I did, I submitted yesterday.
Okay. Let me take a look at your individual quiz and I'll just respond individually to you on that one. Okay. So I'll see what the issues were and we'll work that out. But what I can do is I can go in and Connect and I can do this for anybody. I can look at anything that you've submitted, and if you have questions on, and specifically since the quiz is already over, I can go back and take a look at it and I can send you, I'll give you some feedback on that. All right. Does anybody have anything else? Any other issues? Anything that's you're having problems with that we've talked about in the last few weeks? Anything?
I do.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
So I was having problems understanding homework too, so I just gave up.
Oh man,
And
okay.
I didn't finish it. But can you like go over like a problem or two on it? Because I was
Okay, so this is with chapter 2 homework.
yeah.
Okay. Here's what okay, I mean, I'm not going to say no, I think it's a really good point, but let me kind of give everybody a heads up just in terms of where we're at and what I'm going to be doing, not just this week and next week. And this kind of will address that, Yana. So today, I have at least one problem. It's a pretty long problem I'm going to walk you through. That's review, but it takes you through, again, the debits and credits, and it's actually in T accounts. But the point is I've actually covered everything that you'll be tested on at this point. So my plan is today to work a couple problems with you. This is in chapter 3. On Wednesday, I'm going to go over the study guide with you guys. I'm going to talk about the exam details at that point, because at that point, I think I probably have covered everything. And then literally, and since you asked, Adriana, I mean, let me give everybody a heads up. The way I'm going to administer this exam is what'll happen is it'll be available on Monday, and you'll have a week to take it. And you'll just like your quizzes and your homeworks, you can pick a time that's convenient for you, and I'll have all the details in terms of the exam time that you have, how many minutes you have to take the exam. But the point is you'll be able to take it on your time. And what that's going to do, because I'm following the schedule, is that I will literally have next week, even though the exam is available next week, the way I'm going to use our class sessions is to basically answer questions like what Iana just asked you. Is I'll go back, whether it's chapter 1, chapter 2, or chapter 3, anything you want me to go back over, and this is again before you want to take the exam. You do not have to take the test during our live virtual session. In fact, I don't think anybody will. I think you'll just take it you could take it at midnight if you wanted. But I'm going to use next week's sessions to basically just use those as review, and that's for any chapter. So because I know I need to get through, I want to go back through this debit and credit stuff again with chapter 3 today. And again, Iana, it's very similar to what you're doing in chapter 2. Once I can get through this material, at that point, I'm just telling you, all of next week, I'm just freeing up for this session for questions like if you want me to go back to a previous chapter, that's a good time to do that. And then I also remind anybody if you have any sort of one-on-one questions that you want to work individually with me, or you have a specific question outside of our live virtual lecture time, just email me and I can set you up. We can do a personal Zoom meeting if that would help you guys as well. But you got to, and that I'll just do case by case appointment, we could just set up an appointment and do it that way. But I know I need to get through these debits and credits. So like for Iana, so if you can just hold up just a little bit, all of next week, the Monday and Wednesday classes, I can use those to go back and practice problems with anybody, with anybody during our session and record them to go back and review those, the accounting equation, as well as, anything in this chapter as well. All right, but I know because of our time, I know we only have 50 minutes. I've got to get this stuff in 3 first. But like if Iana, if it would help, if you even want to do a personal Zoom meeting, just let me know. And I can set that up this week as well. Okay?
Okay.
Cool. All right. Does anybody else have anything before I get going here? I know it's about 9 after. I want to get to a problem before our time runs out. But anything else? I'll give you, anybody else any questions, then I'll get started. We got about 16 people in here at this point. All right. So let me go ahead and I'm going to share my screen and let me get this up. All right. All right. So, and hopefully if I'm not coming in clear, let me know. I know I had some microphone issues last week in my evening class, but for this class, for some reason, it was working fine. At least nobody told me about it. But all right. So what I have on the screen here, and this is for, hopefully you're seeing this, if not, let me know. This is actually problem number 10 in your chapter 3 homework assignment in Connect. Now keep in mind, I've actually already illustrated some of this in a recording in Blackboard for you. So if you went to like your learning modules and clicked on chapter 3 homework video, I've actually gone through some of this just in a video. But what I thought would be kind of nice for you guys today is let's just kind of go through this again, and I'm going to do it live. So this particular problem, if you note, I'm going to get my mouse going here. You'll notice it's got letters A through S. It covers just about every type of transaction you're gonna have. And I'm gonna go with, we're gonna go the debits and credits. I got all the T accounts, they're already set up and Connect for you. We'll go through each of these again. We'll do the debit, whatever credit, whatever account we need to credit, and then we'll do the balances. So again, I want to go through another problem. This is just the basics. And I'll pause every other question or so. And then again, if there's something you're not seeing or not understanding, please let me know. So we'll start with the first one, and just like most of them, they typically start with the owner invested money to start the business. So let's start with letter A, and this is essentially how they want you to enter it as well. So letter A, we've got.
Could somebody mute that?
Yes, I'm sorry. Let me get that. I will get the mute on just a second. Let me get back to my screen. Hold on just a second. Yeah, I'll mute everybody right now. That way, if there's any distracting noise, everybody should be muted at this point so that you can hear what I'm saying. All right, so back to this. All right, so the owner invested $90,000 to start the business. So let's go down. So in the homework transaction, what will happen is they've already given you all of these T accounts. All right. And you'll notice that all you have to do is you have to go to a cell. And for example, this is for letter A. So we know cash is involved. So I would go to cash. You'd enter transaction A. And then I'll just do this first one with you. We know that at this point we have to debit cash because they're putting money into the business. So cash is an asset. So we're increasing it. So we go down to cash and we enter that 90,000 right there as a debit. And that's how they'd want you to set that up. And then I would look for the capital account, which is right here. And again, you want to enter letter A just to reference that that's the transaction number. And then you put a credit of 90,000. And you notice that the way this thing is set up, if you haven't looked at this yet, is that it already automatically calculates the balance for you. It's kind of nice. So like, notice when I put that 90,000 there for cash, it automatically put that balance as 90,000 debit. Just like for capital, it went ahead and entered that balance as 90,000 credit right there. All right. So just to kind of make a point, you know, the computers do a whole lot for you, but you should still understand how to get that balance, because don't just rely on the computer always, you know, answer the questions when you get to the exam. So you still need to know how to get the concept of a balance where you add up your debits and your credits and you take the difference. But remember, cash is an asset, normal balance is on the debit side. So when you get to this problem, when you start to work it yourself, that's essentially how they want you to enter these. So that would be letter A. Okay, and again, I'll go through each one. I'll just pause. If anybody has any questions about what I just did on part A, just let me know now. Send me a chat or raise your hand. I'll go back over it. Okay. Part B, letter B, transaction B. We've got, says paid $6,000 for the current month's rent. So that's our second transaction. So when they say paid, we know that's got to be cash. And that means that cash is going to be reduced. It's going to be decreasing. We're paying the rent, and we know that that should be an expense, like rent expense. So we got $6,000. And so what I'll do is I'll go down to cash. And what they want you to do is I'm going to go to this row, and I'm going to enter letter B, just to indicate that that's transaction B. And then pause for a moment, think about it. Do you guys think we should be debiting cash or crediting cash? Does anybody have any thoughts on that?
Should we credit it?
Very good, very good. So I'll put 6,000. I'll enter the credit. All right.
And
And
debit expense.
yeah, and then debit expense. Yeah, and I think, and let me go back. I think you can also enter, if it helps on some of these, you can also put the transaction here as well. I think for this one, that's probably how they want you to do that. It's, to me, that's not really the point. But so if you get confused, I'm just looking at this myself because I'm just bringing up the student view. You could put the transaction B right here just so you know it goes with this particular credit. But yeah. So then I'm looking for the expense, and the guy see it, there's rent expense, and I'm in a transaction B, and then there's my debit. Okay. Were there any questions on that one?
Okay, I'm glad that you showed me that you could put the letters on the other side, because when I see all them boxes, I get confused.
Okay. Yeah, and that's what I plan to do basically for the rest of the semester, is during our sessions is to bring up some of these homeworks, because I found out that after, I think it was all my applied accounting classes, this was for the live virtual lecture and my online, a lot of people had issues on chapter 2 homework when they didn't know that they had to enter that account title on the T account. I think it was for like problems 7, 8, and 9, where there was a drop-down box, like where you see cash here. They wanted you to enter a drop-down arrow and actually enter the account title. And several people had all the debits and credits. They had everything correct, and they just weren't. I think it's actually this chapter, and I say chapter 2. Actually, I think it's chapter 3. They didn't realize that they actually had to enter the account title as well. And the problem was marking it as not complete, and they couldn't figure out why. So yeah, I intend to try to do some of these also live virtual lecture with you as well, just to kind of give you an idea of how the Connect website wants you to enter these. All right. Okay. Was there anything else on part B? Does that make sense? We just debited cash and credited, or sorry, we debited rent expense and credited cash because we're paying our rent. Okay, part C. Get my stylus. All right, so number C, we've got bought office furniture for $10,580. That's in cash. Office furniture, and we paid cash. Office furniture is an asset, cash is an asset. So we have to debit one asset and credit another asset, which also means we're increasing one asset and we're decreasing another asset. So everybody think, which asset do you think should be increased? Is it office furniture or is it cash?
You increase office furniture and decrease cash.
Very good. So therefore, office furniture has to be debited because that's the asset that's increasing. So if I go down, I'm looking for office furniture. They should already have it set up, and they do. And I believe this is transaction C. I'm just going to enter the C there. I'll put $10,580 as the debit, and then I'll go back up to cash, enter transaction C, and put the credit of $10,580. And I believe that's how they want you to enter it when you guys start to do that, when you guys submit this. So we've got, again, the credit to cash of $10,580, and a debit to office furniture for $10,580. Now, let me show you something right now before I go any farther with this, because this again, if anybody has any questions about how to calculate account balance, this is a good time to stop and show you. Look at cash right now. We have a debit and we have 2 credits. And you'll notice that the problem default, the way the system's set up, they've already calculated the current balance after this third transaction, which is $73,420. So at this point in time, if you don't know how to calculate that, let me know. If you want me to go back over and say, okay, well, you got your debits are 90, and your credits, if you add your credits, that's 16,580. You would take the debits and subtract the credits to get one balance of 73,420. Now, even though this calculates it for you, does anybody have any questions again on how we do that? If you can understand this concept right here, then you know how to do a balance. You know how to do account balance.
You said we subtract what?
Yeah. So what you do is you take 90,000 and you subtract out your credits. all right, which is 6,000 plus 10,580 is 16,580. So 90,000, subtract these two, subtract the 6 and the 10,580, and what's left is the 73,420, and that's called the account balance. Notice it's on the debit side. That means that's normal. That's where it should be, the debit side. Remember, this is your debit column, this is your credit column. It's on the debit side because it's an asset. All assets should have debit balances because they increase with debits, okay? All right, so that was transaction C. Let's check out transaction D. Okay, so now we're back to this perform service. I know we've seen that a few times. Perform service for 8,200 cash. Perform service should be a revenue item. And does anybody remember the revenue account we should be looking for perform service?
Is revenue.
I go down. Does anybody see it?
Fees income.
Fees income. There you go. Very good. Personally, I just wish I actually wish they just use service revenue. I think that's a better account, but you know, that's just a preference. But fees income will be your revenue account. And on this one, it looks like it's cash. So we know it's going to be cash and fees income. Again, this is transaction letter D. So if I go to cash, anybody, is cash going to be credited or debited? Anybody?
Debited.
Credited, right?
Debited.
Okay, so I'm sorry, debit, you're right, the credit, it's revenue, right? Yeah, it's Monday morning, yeah. Debit cash, you got it. So we'd say debit cash, 8,200. So this is transaction D. And again, we're debiting it because it's increasing. We're getting money into the business. So remember, debits have to equal credits. So by default, if I go to fees income, I would say credit, put the letter transaction D, and then I believe it's 8,200 as well. All right. So debit cash, 8,200. The credit to offset that goes to fees income. And for transaction letter D, and again, I'm not going to move around. Notice again, it says perform services for cash, which I know we've seen that already. But as we go through all these, we're going to see this type of transaction come up again and again. Sometimes it'll say perform services in cash. Sometimes it might say something else. So for example, this is letter D. When we get to letter F, you'll notice it says perform services, but it says on credit. When we go down to letter M and N, notice there's two more of these. Notice one is cash and one is credit. So again, I like this problem because it's going to give you multiple times to practice this transaction. You got cash revenue, and sometimes you have credit revenue. And when we get to letter F, we'll go through that. But just to kind of tell you, perform services is a consistent way they word your revenue problems. We know it's got to be fees income. Okay. Anything on D? And now that we just went over it, questions? All right. Letter E, paid the telephone bill, $12.50. So paid, that means cash. And then telephone bill obviously is going to be some sort of expense. So $12.50. So if I go down to cash, I'll start with cash. And again, this is letter, it'll be a transaction E. So $12.50. Does anybody think, are we going to be debiting cash or crediting cash?
Credit cash.
Debit.
Who thinks it's credit?
Baka.
Ibaka? You think it's credit?
Yes,
And
because the cash gonna decrease.
Very good. Cash is decreasing, so it has to be credited. So it's $12.50. So if I enter $12.50 as a credit, again, this is transaction E, then I have to debit something to offset that. So the debit would have to go to something expense, and I see telephone. Yeah. If you don't see the exact account name, like this one was they paid the telephone bill, then they'd probably just want you to put that into miscellaneous. But this one they do have telephone up, so I'd enter letter E. I put that debit of $12.50. So
But
again,
normally, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
But normally, they don't have miscellaneous or they don't have telephone. So which one do it fall on under? Because on the last homework, it did the exact same thing, and I didn't know where to put it under.
Yeah.
Like, what did I put under utilities?
Yeah, on this one, because it says telephone bill, put it into the telephone expense. But I think there's one coming up. Let me find it. Like letter Q, I believe when we get to letter Q, where it says they paid a company for photo work, that one they're going to have us put that into miscellaneous.
Okay.
I don't believe that'll be an issue on the exam. It's a good point. There should always be a specific account name. Nobody, whether you're a large business or small business, you don't put anything in a miscellaneous. You want to know what your expenses are. But I believe that's the only one we'll have for miscellaneous. Generally, there should be an account name that goes with each expense. All right. And I say this because, when I worked in industry and I did a lot of this stuff, we did have a miscellaneous expense, but they were always frowning upon us or anybody using that account, specifically when you wanted to go back and analyze your expenses, because what's miscellaneous mean? We don't know what it is. You have to go look up the invoice. So it's better just to have an exact account title name. That way, you know right away what your expenses are. So telephone expense, again, because it's the telephone bill. All right, letter F. And like I just said earlier, letter F is just like letter D, but notice it says perform services for $14,000, but it says on credit, not for cash. So does anybody remember what the credit account name should be?
Accounts payable.
Okay, good guess. It's not accounts payable. It would be accounts payable if we were buying something on credit. So remember,
Wait, on credit is accounts receivable, right?
very good. Yes, very good. So guys, so this one will be accounts receivable. All right. So it's performed service. It's accounts receivable because it's a promise. It's like we're going to be expecting cash to come in later. So if I go in and find my accounts receivable, again, this is letter F, 14,000. So accounts receivable, of course, it's not cash, but it's going to be cash later. We would have to enter that debit of 14,000 into accounts receivable. Again, this is transaction F. So I'd say transaction F. There's my $14,000 debit. Again, we're increasing an asset. That's cash, or that's accounts receivable. At some point in time, we expect this $14,000 to become cash. But just right now, this is how credit works. Again, the pros and cons of why do businesses extend credit? I think we all know that it increases revenue. If you give your customers time to pay, most of the time they'll pay you. Now, we'll deal with the risk aspect of this in chapter 12 when we determine sometimes accounts receivable goes bad. Sometimes they don't pay. What happens then? But just for now, we're going to assume they're going to pay us. Now, the offset has to go to what? Fees income, because that's the revenue item. So this is what, 14,000. So I just go to 14,000, enter my credit. And again, this is letter F, just to kind of give you the transaction. And by the way, it's good to, I like the fact that they make you put these reference letters next to each transaction. And we'll get more into that in chapter 4 when we talk about a journal ledger format. But it's nice to do this now because, at some point in time, let's say there was a mistake made. If you don't have your transactions labeled, you're not going to know how to go back and find what the transaction referenced and to try to fix it. So it's always good to have a reference or some sort of reference notating what that transaction is. All right. Okay, so questions on this one on letter F, where we debited accounts receivable and credited fees income. Okay, letter G. It says, this one we've got, purchased a computer and copier for $18,000. So stop right there. This is where a lot of people get mixed up. So it says purchased. So we got to figure out, notice it doesn't say paid. It just says purchased. If they had said paid, then we know right away we've got cash. This one said we purchased a computer and a copier for $18,000. Then they go on to say that they paid $7,200 in cash and the balance is due in 30 days. So we do have some cash involved, but we didn't pay the whole thing. So we'll start with the obvious. Computer and equipment, the cost is $18,000. So if I go down, I'm looking for something, one of my asset accounts, I'm looking to see if they have anything that says computer. They don't, but they do have office equipment. So does everybody see, if you're wondering what account name to use, a computer and a copier would be classified as equipment. It's office equipment. So we're going to use that account. In fact, since it's an asset and we're buying it for $18,000, does everybody agree that we should be debiting equipment? Or does anybody think we should be crediting equipment? Does everybody agree we should be debiting?
We should be debiting.
Debit. So let me enter that right now, 18,000. I'm going to enter that as a debit. And again, this is transaction letter G. So you want to enter letter G there. And then stop right there for a moment. So if we've got 18,000 debit, that means we have to have credits of 18,000 as well. We know they paid cash of 7,200. So we know cash has to be credited for 7,200. Now, if we stopped right here and we did a trial balance, we wouldn't balance because we need to offset that other what? If we have 18,000 debit, somebody tell me, what does the other credit have to be? So we got 18,000 debit, one credit of 7,200. We need another credit. Does anybody know for how much?
For 18, right?
Nope. Because we're crediting cash for 7,200, and we're debiting office
The
equipment.
difference? The difference?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, are you asking me?
Oh yeah, I mean, Yana, anybody, yeah, you or anybody. Just have to take 18,000 minus the 7,200.
And it's 8,800?
10,800, right?
6,000, yeah.
So does anybody know where that credit should go?
That should go on the debit side.
No. I'm just asking for, I'm asking for the, in fact, let me get something on. Let me get my style.
Is the accounts payable?
Accounts payable. So real quick, so let me show you this. So I'm going to get my, if I can get my drawing on here. So we've got, right now, we've got equipment that we just debited for 18,000. So I've got a debit of 18,000. And remember that your credits have to offset that. You have to have $18,000 of credits. And so we just said cash gets credited 7,200, but we need another 10,800. And I think somebody just said that. That would go into accounts payable because these two added together, these two credits would offset.
Make 18. Mm-hmm.
There you go. So if I went to accounts payable, I'll go right down here. I'm going to enter 10,800 as my credit. And again, I'll put letter G next to it, just to note that. So at this point in time, this is what they call later on, they're going to call this a compound type of transaction. That's where you have three accounts, three or more accounts affected. We've got cash, we've got office equipment, and we've got accounts payable. You could have 30 accounts, it doesn't matter. Your debits still have to equal your credits. All right, so does anybody have any questions on what I just showed you on letter G? Okay, cool. All right, letter H. Notice it says received $7,000 from credit clients. Does anybody know what that means? You received what?
You receive cash on credit.
Okay, so you receive cash, and again, I like to do these one at a time. So anytime you receive cash, Yana, so is it going to be increased or decreased?
Increased.
So debit or credit?
Debit.
Debit.
Okay, there you go. So on letter H, I'll go to debit cash, and again, it is for $7,000. 7,000 debit. Again, there's my letter H. And then somebody tell me, what does the credit have to be? We have to credit something.
Accounts receivable.
Receivable.
Very good. So I go to accounts receivable, 7,000 credit. And again, that's letter H. I'll enter that transaction and you're done. That's it. So you debited cash for the 7, and then there's the credit to accounts receivable. You're increasing an asset, which is cash, and you're decreasing another asset, which is accounts receivable. So like I said earlier, we had started with 14,000 when they had that credit revenue. We're now collecting from that. We're now, basically our clients are now paying us. They just paid us $7,000. That's awesome. They still have another $7,000 to pay us. So we still have risk there. We're waiting on that money. But at some point in time, hopefully we'll get that money. But this is how you show a collection from accounts receivable, by debiting cash and crediting accounts receivable. Okay. All right. Questions? Anybody else on H?
I just have a quick question, not about
Yeah.
H, but just in general.
Okay.
So for accounts receivable, that's pretty much just any company or people who owe you money, correct?
Correct.
All right, that's all I needed. Thank you.
Yeah. Let me give you one more analogy on that. So if you pay a water bill or a power bill, and this is for me too, they always send me, of course I pay all my stuff, it's set paid automatically, but I still get a bill in the mail. For the month of, this is what, September, I will get billed for my power bill probably sometime in October. Until I pay it, I am accounts receivable on their books because I owe them money. So at some point in time, all of us are somebody's accounts receivable where we got to pay our bills. I'm just saying accounts receivable, this shows who owes you money.
When is lunch? Come, just wait. Go. When is lunch?
Ubaka, do you have a question? Ubaka? No, I thought I heard something. I was talking. No? Okay, cool. All right. Anything else on H? We're good? All right. And again, you know, I know this is like week 5 or whatever, but hopefully you're starting to kind of get into this is the language of accounting. This is how accounting, the accounting world works. This is how the accounting people write. This is the language. So hopefully we're kind of getting into how to read accounting problems now. All right. Letter I. Paid $2,800 in cash for office cleaning. So we know it's cash, and it says paid, and we've had paid before, so hopefully you're thinking you go to cash. Cash should be reduced, right? Which means what? Which means credit, right? So we'd be crediting cash, $2,800, but we have to debit something. So I'm looking for something about cleaning expense, and let's see if we see it. I don't see it. I don't see a cleaning expense. I see utilities, telephone, rent, and salaries. So that means they want us to put this one into miscellaneous. So when you get to that part, remember this one goes to miscellaneous expense. And so on letter, again, this is what letter I, start with cash. So I think I just kind of gave away, but everybody say cash is going to be what? Credited. We're reducing it. Again, there's letter I. And then I would be debiting my miscellaneous expense again for $2,800. All right, that one's a pretty easy one. And that one is, that's another paid. That is similar to letter E that we just did earlier. So letter I and letter E are basically the same type of transaction, except letter E was the telephone bill. Letter I was the cleaning expense. Okay, now from here on out, I think everything is going to be a repeat of what we just seen, except for letter P. So I'm trying to get to that one as well. I know we got about 11 minutes. So, all right, so letter J. It says purchased additional office chairs, 5,800. Received credit terms of 30 days. So we bought office chairs. That's the cost. But notice, does it say anything in letter J about cash? Does it say that we paid anything? It does not. So this is going to be a purchase, but it's a credit purchase. Let's start with office chairs. And again, we know it's going to be 5,800. So I'm going to office equipment. And everybody says what? Debit or credit office equipment?
Would that be credit?
Okay, it's not credit. Think about, remember, office equipment is an asset and it's going to be increasing because we're buying it.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So it'll be
Debit.
debit. So it's a debit office equipment, 5,800. And then I have to credit what? This is the one I don't think we've seen it, but what would we credit?
Account payable.
What's that? Accounts payable. Very good. So 5,800 accounts payable. So we've got a debit to office equipment and a credit to accounts payable. Think of it as if we bought something, but we haven't paid for it yet. So we actually get to take possession of the asset. It's ours now, and then we're going to pay it later. Once we pay this, once we start to pay it, that's when we'll be debiting accounts payable, which we haven't done that just yet. Okay. All right, questions on this one? This is what letter? I'm trying to get my mouse back. It's frozen a little bit. This was letter J. Anything else on J? Anybody? We're good? Okay. Letter K says purchased office equipment for $22,000, paid half, the balance is due in 30 days. So again, more office equipment, $22,000. Notice it's the same as J, purchased. So we know we have to be debiting it, just like letter J. So letter K, I go to office equipment. And again, this is letter what? K. I would say 22,000 debit. And I think this one was letter J, I believe. That correct. So I have to credit something. And on letter K, it says paid half in cash. Well, what's half of 22,000? We know that's 11,000. So let's go to cash. Anybody? Am I going to debit cash or credit cash for 11,000?
Credit.
Credit. So there's my 11,000 credit. But then remember, I need another credit because I have 22,000 of debit right here. And right now I just entered a credit of 11. So I need another 11,000. Where does that other credit go?
Accounts payable.
Ubaka, got it. Accounts payable?
Yes.
You just enter the 11,000. And then there's your credit. So here you go. You've got, again, let me erase that. We've got.
Tell me how two accounts going on credit.
Okay, let me illustrate. So it's like this. Find my style. So right now, I'll just write this in a horizontal format. We've got a debit of 22,000 right here. That's this debit right here. That's your office equipment right there. I need to have credits of 22,000 to offset that. So when we said 11,000 of a credit goes to cash because we're reducing it, I need another 11,000. And so therefore, we're going to simply just put that into accounts payable right there. So here's your 22,000 of credits in two different accounts. That would total that 22,000. Does that help, Taylor? Or does that not help? I think your question was how we have two accounts with two credits.
Mm-hmm.
We have a credit to cash of 11 and a credit to accounts payable of 11.
Just add both of them together to make 22.
Yep, there you go.
So we'll be doing that for every Okay, never mind. Scratch that.
No, it's good. It doesn't matter. Any transaction, you have to have debits and credits that equal each other. So I
How
don't,
will we know,
go ahead.
how will we know which accounts would like to work with to add together?
Okay,
Like how we did the last one.
so let me go back up. This was letter K, right? So on this one, and of course, this is why we're practicing. So office equipment, it has to be one of the accounts. When they say paid, we know that that's referencing cash. So there's the other account. And then when they say the balance is due in 30 days, it's basically implied that it's credit. They don't actually tell you credit, but again, the way they word this, it means that you got to put the balance into an accounts payable account. So letter K and letter G, study these two. This is how they'll do it to you. They'll give you one where it'll tell you, here's the price, here's the purchase price. They'll tell you how much you paid in cash, and the plug number, which you have to offset something, typically will go to accounts payable on this one. And you just have to, this is just why we're practicing it. So this is how you'll get used to, trying to figure out what accounts you got to be using. So office equipment, which is your asset, cash, and then that means accounts payable. Okay. I don't know, Taylor, does that help at all?
Yes, it did.
All right, letter L says we are issuing a check to pay the salaries. So $9,400 to pay the salaries. So we know a check means cash. So we're going to go down to cash, pay the salaries, $9,400. So cash is going down. So we're going to be crediting cash, $9,400. So I'll put that $9,400 as a credit. And the debit has to go to something that says salaries expense. So let's look to see, do they have salaries expense? And they do. So salaries expense is right here. So again, the debit is going to be for $9,400. So debit salary. And of course, you'd enter the appropriate account title when you're doing that. All right. So I'm looking at my time. I'm trying to get to letter P. I'll get to it. All right. Look at letters M and N. They're both perform services, right? One says perform services cash. The other one says perform services on credit. We've already seen both of these. If you go to cash, perform services for cash, you should all say debit cash, 14.5, and then credit fees income, 14.5. You go to letter N, it says perform services on credit. That's going to be accounts receivable. You'd say debit accounts receivable, 16,000. And then credit fees income, 16. And again, I just entered these real quickly because I got a couple minutes left, but I'm trying to get to letter P. But O and P, I'll probably have to stop on letter P. But look at letter O real quick. Letter O says we collected 8,000 on accounts receivable from charged customers. So 8,000 on accounts receivable is going to cash, right? And then we're going to be taking out 8,000 of accounts receivable right there. So I'd go to my cash. And of course, I would say, debit cash, 8,000. And then we're going to be crediting accounts receivable, 8,000. Okay. And then the last one, which I'm not going to probably get farther than letter P, is where it says issued check in partial payment of an amount owed. So this is different. We haven't done one of these just yet. Paid what we owed. So what account are we going to pay off? Does anybody know?
Would it be accounts payable?
Very good. Very good. Accounts payable. So if I go to accounts payable, this is 2,900. If I go to accounts payable, we're going to debit it for 2,900. Anytime you pay off an account like accounts payable, the way you reduce it is by debiting it. And if I debit accounts payable, that means that I have to credit cash. So go back up to cash, and I know I'm out of spaces, but 2900. I think I should have been using every single line, but just that's the point. Just to make sure you know you should be crediting cash for 2900. Okay. All right, guys. I know I'm at 10:50, and I don't want to keep you guys over because I know some of you have an 11 o'clock class. But again, this was from your homework, and again, the session is being recorded. Kristen, do you have a question?
Huh?
Did anybody have a question? I thought I heard somebody say.
Yeah, this Taylor. I have a question.
Yes.
On the analyze part,
Yes.
you go to, yeah, right. Will we be adding each transaction like cash, accounts payable, accounts? I'm talking about the total.
Right. Oh, no, on this one, all you have to do on this one is look at your accounts payable. Whatever balance is in accounts payable is going to be your answer.
You said every balance.
No, so for example, accounts payable, that's the only liability account. So whatever our balance is in accounts payable at the after all these transactions, the balance of accounts payable is what you'll enter for that answer.
Okay.
Okay. All right, guys. So, guys, this was your homework, and of course, you guys have all these answers in my other recording in Blackboard. You can go and take a look at it. We'll continue this on Wednesday. I also intend to have a study guide for you. I have it ready, but we'll talk about the study guide and all the exam details on Wednesday, and then we'll work some more problems. And then at that point, even though the exam will be next week, I gotta give you a heads up. I'm using basically our Monday and Wednesday sessions next week for anybody. This is for the whole class to go back and rework anything from chapters 2 or 3. Okay, so just kind of giving you a heads up. All right, so if you guys need to leave, that's fine. I can hang on here for a few minutes. Anybody has any other questions on anything?
So we are no longer putting the negative sign. It would be like the credit would be the negative sign.
Correct. Yeah. So for example, accounts receivable right here. So rather than putting a -7, we just put 7,000, and by default that means negative.
Okay, I'm glad she asked it.
Yeah, good. That's a good question. Same thing with cash. And all these credits that I entered right here, it's implied those mean negative, but just the fact that it's credit, you don't have to put that minus in front of it. And the fact is that once I enter all these debits and all these credits, they already have a formula in their system where they're already calculating the increase, the plus and minus for you already. Okay. Good. That's a good question. Anything else that you've seen that you're not getting or that you need some?
I'm done.
We're good, Taylor? Good. Anybody else? Are we good? Okay. Well, like I said, Mark? Yeah, Mark.
I actually do have another question.
Yes.
So for the attendance, I haven't really been checking in. Are you still taking like attendance through that?
Yeah. The way I've been doing it is, as long as you've been submitting your assignments in Connect, you're okay for me. And nobody at this point, if you're still in the class at this point, you don't really have to worry about getting purged out. They already did the purge where if you have not been attending, you would have been kicked out of the class already. So at this point, if you're still in here, and you are, I think you're fine. But yeah, the way I'm tracking the attendance, because I know some people sometimes they can't. I mean, you could have an internet issue and you can't get into the class, or a Zoom issue that could happen. I check and Connect, and as long as you've been looking at your assignments and submitting those, you're in good standing in my class.
Okay.
All right. Anything else on anybody? Any thoughts? All right. Well, this video recording should be available hopefully sometime this morning, later today. I'll put it again in Blackboard. And then let me know if you don't know where to find it. It's under that Zoom meeting recordings link in Blackboard. So if there's nothing else, I'm going to go ahead and sign off. And then please, if anything comes up that you couldn't think of right now, just send me an email, and I'll try to get back to you as quick as possible. Okay. All right, guys. Well, let's sign out. Have a good day. And again, I check my emails almost 24/7. So again, see you guys on Wednesday, and just be prepared to look at that study guide a little bit. We'll talk about the exam coming up, and then we'll go back and we'll do some more review. Okay.